Welcome to Only Murders in My Mind. Hello everyone, it's Thursday, it's 5 p.m. and it's Only Murders in My Mind with the wonderful Liz Hedgecock.
Hello.
And the fabulous Mike Jackson.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning. Take your choice. Take your pick.
Yes.
Thank you, David Frost. Going back a bit there.
It is, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
How are we both? All right?
Fine, thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
not bad.
Enjoying
Far
a
too
bit-
much to do.
Yeah, enjoying a bit of sunshine. Seems to come back again, the sunshine.
It's
which
coming
is
and
nice.
going at the moment,
Yeah.
isn't it? What?
Yeah.
I went to Berry Market with the church last Wednesday, and it was blowing a gale, it was raining, and the little old ladies I were with were coming out. They'd bought hats, scarves and gloves. Well, for summer things, but yeah, I can recommend it actually. It's very good, Berry Market.
Haven't been for a while.
Yeah,
No.
I enjoyed that. So today we're all going to pick a topic, aren't we?
Yeah, a real mixture of bits and pieces to talk about.
It's a pick and mix.
Pick a mix.
Pick and mix.
Oh.
But before we get on to that, I just want to prove that people do actually comment on our podcast, and we got a nice response from somebody who is a member of the Richard III Society. I've just got to find it now. Excuse me.
At this point, Liz and I could join in to help Carol while she's
Or we
looking
could
for
do
it.
some hold music. Would
Yes,
that be good?
or we could tell a
Yeah.
joke.
No, that's
Or
the
we,
wrong one.
or we could just keep quiet and let Carol suffer.
I can edit out this part.
Yeah, this is true. When you've got a good editor, it's what you can do.
Oh, that's spoiling it, John.
Oh. It's working out to be grand crescendo there.
Right, I'm here now. So we did a piece on Richard III, which you seem to all enjoy, and we got a message from a fully paid up member of the Richard III Society, Susie Bushell, since 2012. It's not our Susie, is it?
It could be, very well be.
Susie Bustle or Bushel?
Bustle, Bussell.
That sounds
That's
like.
our Susie. Yeah.
Right, I did not know this.
There you
Because
go.
I didn't, Anyway, so she was in Leicester for the interment of the king, and she went to the ceremony at the cathedral because she got picked in the public ballot. But this was the interesting bit. I can confirm that finding Richard III was 95% down to Philippa Langley and John Ashdown Hill. And it was John who was on the spot where the body was. So just think all that time had elapsed, and through research and everything, this man and Philippa could find exactly where the body was. Apparently, John doesn't get much credit for it. So big shout out for John. Whee!
Well done, John.
And Philippa Langley has a book out if you're interested in what happened to the Princess in the Tower. So, and she's revealed this on lots of information from documents found around the time in different parts of the world. Well, it would be Europe, wouldn't it?
I would have thought so.
Yes, where Henry VII had no influence. So they weren't, impressed by the fact that he was the king, and they told it as it was. So that
Kind of like now when they have like a super injunction in this country, but like the European newspapers just go ahead and print it.
Yeah,
It doesn't cover them.
Exactly.
There
So
you go. Medieval super injunction.
Yeah.
I think
Go
that's
figure.
very. Thank you, Susie. Thank you very
Yes,
much.
thank you
for
very
that.
much.
We appreciate that. So now I've lost what I'm going to talk about.
We're a well-oiled machine.
While Carol's collecting her thoughts, just going on that, I mean, if anybody does want to leave a comment on any of our podcasts,
A nice one.
well, yeah, any sort, but really nice ones, then thank you very much. We're happy to get comments or likes or whatever, but we'll also read them out at some stage in the future. And it's a bit like our blog. I put up a weekly writing prompt, which I know a number of people are joining in with. But again, if you put your story up on there, then maybe we can choose one or two to read out in future episodes.
Definitely, yeah. We're always pleased to hear from our listeners. So a few weeks ago, I talked about Fargo. Yes,
Which I watched the other day.
Did you enjoy it again?
Oh, it was brilliant.
Yes.
I introduced one of our kids to it. And first of all, he was like,
Confused?
why is it snowing all the time?
'Tis as well, isn't it?
Why do they all say yeah?
Yeah. And if
Really enjoyed it,
if you've
though.
ever watched this film or the series, you will know that at the beginning it says this is based on a true story, and it isn't. And it got me wondering about other things that they say are based on true stories. And one of them, one of them is, and the reason I'm using this one is there was a documentary, a 4-part documentary on the BBC not that long ago, and I'll have to be careful how I say it. Amityville Horror, is that right? Have I said that right?
Sounds
Amityville
Horror.
Horror,
Yeah.
which most people have heard of. I've never watched it because, as you know, I do not like horror. I've not read any of the books associated with it, and I've not watched the film, and I'm not going to.
Although
but
you do write some quite gory
I
stuff.
do, yeah. I think it's the supernatural horror that I don't like.
See, I like a bit of Stephen King. But
Yeah.
I'm very much on the tamer end of the mystery spectrum.
Yeah.
See, I've never read. I ought to. I've never read Stephen King.
No,
Um,
just I've read a couple of his books, but they were
Try
quite
Carrie,
mild.
it's much
Yeah.
shorter.
Is it?
So you can decide fairly quickly whether or not you like it.
to read it. So this got me thinking, and I watched all the documentaries that were on, and then did some background research. So most people know about the film. It's about a haunted house and this poor family being terrorised by poltergeists and all sorts of things, and fleeing in terror. But I thought, well, what's behind it? And it started off with the Defoe family, who lived in the house before all these awful things happened. However, real life awful things happened because Ronald Defoe, who was the oldest child, there were 5 children, he was the oldest, murdered his mother, his father, and his 4 siblings. He shot them all. Okay, this man was a well-known drug user, and at the time LSD was very much appropriate. So
roughly when was this happening?
that was happening in the early 70s,
Right.
around
Oh, right.
73, something 74, something like that. The strange thing was there was lots of strange things that came up. I'd be here for 2 hours if I told you all about it, but
a series of podcasts.
The family were all found face down on the beds that had been shot. Didn't have a silencer on the gun. So you would have thought after the first bullet was fired, the others would have run for terror. They'd have hidden.
Yeah.
They've tried to.
Or you'd have found them in the same room, or
Yeah,
not just.
yeah. But no, so that was
Could they have been moved?
that came up. But they said where the blood,
Yeah.
splatter and pools of blood were. No, they were killed where
that's
they were
very
found. It
strange.
is very strange. Yeah.
Ooh.
So Ronald Defoe Jr., he was tried for these crimes. First of all, he said it was a mob killing, and there is evidence that there were contacts to the organised crime gangs in the area, as we call them now. Probably call them the mafia then.
Yeah.
So there were links. So I think that's what he was hoping that people would believe. But his story was so full of holes that in the end, they blew him away. And I shouldn't say that when mob
Well,
killers.
because yeah,
and
I had visions of this double-barrel shotgun. Then
I
yeah,
think where you got that idea from.
he was put on trial, and his plea was that he was insane. And they said no, he was well enough to stand for.
when did
the
this happen?
crime.
Sorry, did I miss it?
74.
No, where?
Amityville in Long Island.
Long Island.
Yeah.
Right.
And he was convicted of 6 25 years to life sentences.
Right. So no death penalty.
No,
It does,
maybe it was where he lived.
I say it does vary from state to state in America, doesn't it?
So that was that, and then the nobody wanted the house, but then a family took it over. I'm just trying to find it. It was 112 Ocean Drive, and
If you live on Ocean Drive, do drop us a line.
in 1975, George and Kathy Lutz moved in with Kathy's 3 children because they'd both been married before. Okay. And within 28 days of them moving, they'd moved out because they'd been terrorised by things moving, slime coming out the wall, or a voice. A priest went to bless the house because of what happened previously, and he got told by this. This is all,
Mm-hmm.
told by a voice, a haunting voice, to get out, leave this house, leave it at once, and all the rest of it. And they fled in terror 28 days later, never to go back. Now, it's interesting because as things progressed, George had a whole industry. George, the man that was living there, George Lux, had a whole career from this.
Even though he only lived there 28 days.
Yeah, because of the films, the franchises, the boot deals. It just went on and on and on. And people were saying, well, that didn't happen. And it was the house was built on an old native Indian burial ground. It wasn't. The Indians that lived in that area, the Native Americans, said no, there was never a burial ground there. And this lady was talking, and she was from a tribe of the Indians. She goes, why do people want to always say that it's haunted if it's on on one of our burial grounds? I think it'd be very peaceful, actually, because they're all laid to rest and all this sort of thing.
I don't know about you, but I find the whole haunted ghosts scenario just unbelievable. I know there would be people that would disagree, but
I don't personally believe in ghosts.
No, I don't.
Although I write about them, but that's different.
Well,
yours are always very friendly, though. On the whole,
mostly, yeah.
You do get
And
one
I
or
suppose,
two aggravated ones.
You get some that are a bit antsy, yeah, but.
Yeah.
So my opinion after doing a lot of research is that he was just making the whole thing up, because apparently him and the Ronald, who killed his family, were both diagnosed with, let me get this right, associated personality disorder. Yeah. They both were diagnosed with that. So,
right. So what would that mean then?
That means that you don't empathise. You live in your own little world. You can be very aggressive. So all these things, you could see where the murderer was coming from, and you could see where George was coming from, because one of his stepsons absolutely hated him. He really loathed him, and he was interviewed and he made he didn't try to hide the fact. But even the son had made a living out of doing podcasts on it for 10 years.
Well, it just shows that, I was going to say, there are lots of gullible people. That might be a bit unkind, but it just shows that if it's an unusual story, however far-fetched it is, it sells newspapers, or it was sold newspapers back in those days.
Oh, yeah.
It's fodder for films and podcasts.
Well, it's like the World Weekly News. Have you ever seen that?
No.
Oh, it's like the National Enquirer, the sort of thing where they have all this, Oh, it's not exactly Jesus' face in a piece of toast, but more or less.
More or less.
It's like the Thingy Times, the
the Stranger Times.
Stranger Times,
yeah.
that sort of thing, yeah.
Well, the thing with the Stranger Times, which is, in case our listeners are wondering, it's a great book by Kem McDonnell, an Irishman, and he's very much taking it up, isn't he? He's taking the mickey out of it all.
Yes.
It really, it's a lot of humour in there. But to some people, they really do soak all this up and believe in it. And it's like anything else. If people are going to be taken in by this, there's always somebody there who'll think, well, I'll make a few bob out of this.
Yeah.
I'll make a podcast, I'll make a film, I'll write a book, or sell my story to the newspapers.
Yeah, well, people love sensation. I mean,
They do.
Look at sensation novels and penny dreadfuls back
Yes,
in the day. And people,
yes.
Lots of people looked down on them and went, "Oh, how can you read that muck?" But I mean, they were very popular.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look at The Exorcist. That was supposed to be based. I've not looked into the history of that, but The Exorcist was supposed to be based on a true story, and look how successful that was worldwide. It was I couldn't go and watch it.
No.
When it came out, I was too frightened, and one of my friends who was like, nothing bothered her. She slept with the light on for about 2 months afterwards.
Yeah, I've seen it. It didn't bother me.
No. Did you
But
see it when it
again-
first came out?
When did it first come out?
Again, it'd be around in the mid-70s, I think.
I would have been about 2.
No,
so
you didn't.
No, I didn't.
No.
Are you sure?
Unless I was in my prime when I got let in free, I don't think so.
I think it was all the hype at the time, because at our local
Yeah.
cinema, when I lived in Widnes, there were St John's Ambulance outside in case
Yeah.
anybody.
Which will have made everyone even more excited.
Of course, what happened? Liz went in when she was 2 in a pram and slept through the whole thing. That's
Maybe I just absorbed it, you know.
Oh, that would have been more Rosemary's Baby if you'd have been there at 2, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
You
Now
know,
that I have seen, and that was scary.
Yeah, yeah. So this is it. So I just found the whole thing fascinating, and I may do one of these again. Maybe I'll research Rosemary's Baby, not Rosemary's Baby, The Exorcist, and see where that originated from. But it did. Both of these caused a massive kerfuffle at the time. The strange thing is that the house was sold then to another family. I don't know what the gap was between them leaving, and they lived in it for 10 years peacefully. Nothing ever strange happened.
Funny that.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
strange, isn't it? Yeah.
You know, they did they gave us a new address because people were going round staring at it. But you know, apart from that.
Well, there you go.
So as
That was
I say,
dead interesting.
I thought the whole thing was basically a big con. What happened previously with the Defoe family? They don't say Defoe on the documentaries. They pronounce it another way. That was horrendous. That was awful.
Oh yes.
That was absolutely just you can't imagine, you know. And it's a small community, and apparently it was the worst crime they'd ever had
I
in that
bet.
community.
But on this podcast, I mean, we've talked about some horrendous crimes, haven't
Yeah.
we? Real life crimes,
Yeah.
especially when we go back into historical crimes. Some of the ones there, and yet nobody. Well, as far as I mean, some of the ones we've talked about in the past, 1 or 2 people have done books and so on, following up, looking into it. But nobody's really taken it to the point of making films and podcasts.
Exploitation, isn't it? You know.
It does feel very exploitative,
It does.
particularly the guy who moved in afterwards and used a month in the house to
Yeah.
feather his nest. That
Yeah.
sounds awful.
Yeah, I think so as well. But
And when you think, you do wonder whether he used that month purely to build up as many stories as he possibly could about
yeah,
slime coming out of the wall.
he was
and
pretending he
strange
was
voices.
possessed,
Yeah.
all this sort of thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know. So, and the priest who's quoted as doing this blessing and hearing these voices, he says he can't even remember going.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean he didn't go. Maybe he just can't remember.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I think that's his get out, actually. Instead of saying, no, it didn't happen. I can't remember doing that. You could always old now. That's probably why I can't remember.
Yeah.
You know. So, Liz, what's your topic of the week?
Okay, well, it's not anything that goes bump in the night.
Okay.
Well, actually, it might have been, I suppose, because I've finished another Maisie book. Yay! I can't remember where I was at last time I was podcasting.
I think it was out for reading.
Yes, that was book 5, wasn't
Yes.
it? Well, I have now drafted book 6.
There's no stopping this woman.
Oh, my life. Well, the thing was, I'd realised that I was going to have to crack on because I'm now starting to write another book with Paula.
Oh, you've got that all planned. and
So we had it
everything.
in the diary, and I thought, well, if I'm going to actually get a whole book in, then basically I need to start now. And I was starting now with really not very much plot at all. So I thought, okay, well, I'll kind of go with what I've got, and then I'll have to sort of plot a bit ahead and then write a bit more, and hopefully the rest of the plot will come to me somehow. I mean, it's a mystery, so, you know, the elements of that, I mean, you know, you've got to solve a mystery, and it's, you know, everyone's going to be, everyone except the criminal obviously is going to be happy at the end, but it was a big blank for a lot of it, which was really strange. I don't know how pantsers do it.
No. I do.
It was,
Just like that.
it was stressful.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
I like knowing where I'm going.
But maybe the plot in yours was more complicated, because my plots tend to be less complicated, and I do plan it out a bit. You've got to, I think, with crime.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, you tie yourself in knots. But I do sort of. It's a very vague plan, and I then do. I'm a pantser. Yeah.
No, it has a strong linear element because of what our protagonists are doing, which you can't really escape from. But yeah, it was a weird thing because it follows straight on from the book before. It's like, it feels like there's no wriggle room. So normally you kind of, you know, everyone would settle in, and then something would happen, and then like the big thing would happen that you can't possibly ignore. You know, end of Act 1, and then they get on with, you know, investigating it. But of course, they're right there.
Yeah.
And, you know, the main players are there too. So it feels like you can't exactly ease into it. You've got to just go for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be interesting reading it back. But anyway, yes.
Without
sorry,
any
Mike.
spoilers, what's the general plot of this one?
Okay, well, this one is called Run to Earth.
Right.
So Maisie and Fraser are in hot pursuit of a suspect who slipped through their fingers previously. Yes.
Suspected of what?
Oh, I couldn't possibly comment because the thing is, it follows directly on from book 5, so I don't want to give away too much here. But what I will say is that they are travelling, and then something happens that switches everything around.
Now, when you say they're travelling, because I know before Maisie's travelled on ocean liners, hasn't she?
Yes.
So is it train travel or sea travel again?
She
or
is back on a train.
back on a train.
Yes.
Oh, right.
A famous train.
A famous train.
A famous train.
Oh.
Oh, which train could that
That'd
possibly be?
Yeah.
And
Like
I mean,
Scotsman.
Yes.
it's Thomas the Tank Engine, actually. But no, it was fun to write, and I think I ended up ramping it up more than I normally would, because when I was writing it, I was thinking, this would normally be the climax, but I'm not there yet. So my climax is going to be bigger than this.
Whoa.
And it's like, ooh. And then, like, a character who I didn't think was going to be there was there and turned out to be a wrong 'un.
They
So-
do this characters, don't they?
Well, something had been bothering me, you see, about the incident that happens. And I thought, now, why wasn't that person there? And then I realised why it was. I was like, oh, you're worse than everybody.
Oh.
So, yes, Maisie Book 5. What have I called that one? Hide and Seek. That's it. Maisie Book 5 Hide and Seek is currently available for pre-order, and that will be out on the 30th of April. So
Excellent.
you may well already have it live by the time this goes out. And I'm aiming to get Maisie Book 6, Run to Earth, out for summer.
Excellent.
But in the meantime, I will be drafting another book with Paula.
I was going to say, what's the one you're doing with Paula? A new one or
This
part
is
of a series?
it's a new, hopefully a new series.
Oh, great.
It is a new genre.
Oh.
We are going into cozy romantic fantasy.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that I like that.
Wow.
I don't think I've
I'm
ever...
hoping we like it too.
I'm not sure I've ever read any cozy romantic fantasy.
Well, you've read cozy fantasy or cozy mystery fantasy. 'cause
Yes,
you've,
yes.
You've read some of the magical bookshop stuff.
Yes, that's right. So it's
So-
a magical bookshop with a bit of love and lust in it.
Blimey.
Don't hold back, man.
But there aren't any books. It's not in a bookshop.
Oh, right.
Yes, it is in a new town.
Newtown.
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
By the seaside.
Talking about
Go on, I want to talk more about the lust.
Blimey. Maybe you can give us some pointers, Mike. You can be our intimacy
I was going to say,
coach.
you're trying to sell romantic fantasy on me, and, you're holding back. You're not telling me what it's all about.
Oh, and there might be dragons.
Oh, dragons.
I love dragons. I've got a
That's the reaction I want.
I've got a dragon.
Yes.
I've got a dragon on my back.
Is this
Not literally. It's a tattoo.
Love Forlorn Dragons, is it? Or...
No, the dragons are okay. The dragons are pretty sorted. It's everyone else that's got problems.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Down to earth dragons.
So when's this one? When do you and Paula hope to get this one out by?
Oh, I don't know. When we've written it, probably. When we've written it, edited it, agonised over it, the usual.
So how far into it are you?
We're going to start writing it like...
So it's still plotting stage?
Paula might
planning
even
stage.
be writing it now.
Right.
We've got a plot. We've got a plot and an outline, so we're doing better than I was for Maisie Book 6.
Because once you start, you write a chapter a piece, don't you?
Yes,
And
yes.
it
That's
usually
how
comes
it turned
together
out.
very quickly, doesn't
yeah.
it?
Yeah, well, because we've got an outline.
Yeah.
You're following a map, so it's it's kind of like having a sat nav, I suppose.
Oh, I like that. The sat nav of writing.
Sat nav of romance.
As long as it doesn't take you into the river, you're good.
Yeah. I had a sat nav, and it was an old one. And when I used to go from the Barrow end of Cumbria up to Kendal, and the road had changed, and you could hear this sat nav going, turn left at the next exit, turn left at the next exit, turn left at the next exit, because the sat nav thought it was going to be in a field. I was actually on the new road.
Yeah.
So then I updated it, and it wasn't less panicky after that.
Oh, that's good. But yes, so happy to have one nearly out, one in draft, and hopefully one in progress.
You are a busy
very
lady.
soon. You know, and you just think, why do I do this?
And she does all her art as well.
Oh, yes,
Yes.
indeed. Well, I've been experimenting with mixed media,
Yes.
which was fun.
Yes,
So,
very much so.
my Lent challenge. So Paula and I tend to challenge each other to do something new rather than give something up for Lent. So that was this year's.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I never forget the year my middle son gave up lime juice for Lent. And I said, but you don't like lime juice? He went, no, but it's on the table at school if I want it.
I love that.
I love that thinking.
So yes. But Ben is very much a lateral thinker, you know. Talking about trains, my son-in-law was here he's not long gone back to London with my daughter, not on his own. And he said he took his friend shopping in Lewis's in London for bedding because they've just moved flats. So I said I'd buy them some bedding. And he said, and the gentleman that was serving us kept a very straight face when he said to him, I'm sorry, sir, but we don't do double quilt covers with Thomas the Tank Engine on.
And why not?
I looked at him and I went, well, he could have joined two together, you know, practical side of me sort of thing. But yes, I mean, this bloke was like, 45 when he asked for this Thomas the Tank for himself and his wife. But that's another story.
I wonder what his wife made of that.
I think she was used to it. The poor woman. But it made me chuckle anyway. Mike, you've got notes there
Yes,
for what you're going to talk about.
maybe. It might be about something else.
Okay, go on then.
No, the story I've got is called The Burning Bed Story.
Oh, okay.
And it's intriguing, really, because it's a murder story, but it's one of those stories that the murder and the trial and the verdict are almost secondary, because what this murder and trial did is have a big impact on how society looked at women.
Okay.
Oh, go on.
All happened in quiet time, back in 1977, so around about the time of your Amityville horrors.
That's all going on then.
In America, Michigan, and the lady who was the centre of it was a lady called Francine Hughes. And to all the local neighbours and what have you, she just seemed like a very ordinary mum. She had a mum of 4, living a modest life. But behind closed doors, her life was anything but ordinary. It was brutal, terrifying, and tragically common. She married young, apparently 16 years old, and her husband, Mickey Hughes, was charming at first. So often you hear these, don't you, about men who abuse. But it didn't take long for the violence to kick in. And he was, like a lot of these sort of abusers, he was controlling, he belittled her, he beat her. And over the years, she became isolated, cut off from her friends, from help. But back then, domestic violence was somewhat overlooked. It was often ignored, and police might turn up, but they rarely intervened.
Oh, man and wife having a fight, leave them to
and
it.
it's not just America. It used to happen in this
yeah.
country as well. You know, courts saw it as a private matter, and women like Francine were just left to survive the best they could.
Or not, in some cases. Yeah.
But apparently in 1971, she tried to escape. She divorced Mickey and began building a new life for herself, and she enrolled in a secretarial school, dreaming of something better. But apparently Mickey didn't go away, and after a car accident left him needing care, he moved back in with Francine and the children. And you know, that is always something that it's very difficult to understand unless you're on the receiving end. How sometimes, and not just because, I mean, men can be abused as well, but how people who are abused often go back to the abuser. You know, even when they seem to have got away, they seem to go back. And anyway, he was still the same, controlling self. And on 9th of March 1977, something snapped, because that day Mickey beat her again, and he forced her to burn her school books. All the books, all the symbol of her escape. He made her burn them, and he belittled her, told her she wasn't bright enough to do anything like that. And later that night, as he slept, she acted. She poured petrol on the bed, lit a match, and walked away. And then she bundled her kids into the car, drove to the police station and said, "I've just killed a man." She sort of turned herself in.
Whoa.
And her trial drew national attention. Initially, her defence were calling it temporary insanity. But it was her life story, her years of abuse, that truly spoke to the jury. And it was one of the first cases where battered woman syndrome was disclosed in court, a turning point.
Oh, right.
And the jury found her not guilty. Even though she'd committed a cold-blooded murder and admitted to it, they found her not guilty, the whole battered woman syndrome. Her story was told in a best-selling book called The Burning Bed by Faith McNulty, and then it became a television film in 1984, starring Farrah Fawcett. Apparently it was a performance that shook viewers and forced a nation to confront the truth about domestic violence. But her story changed things. And it brought the whole issue of domestic violence into the light and into law reform, shelter support and public awareness. Meanwhile, she just led a quiet life after that. I mean, apparently she died aged 69. But her legacy
What she did
continues.
for other women.
Yeah. She didn't have that in mind when she did it. She'd
had enough.
She'd driven to the point that she saw the only way out was to kill the person who was making her life.
But she wouldn't
so
want.
terrible.
She wouldn't want him to have the access to the kids if she, if she'd have walked out again.
Yeah.
It's that thing as well. I think with some people, they are frightened for themselves, but they're terrified for their children. You know.
I think the real turning point was the fact that the jury found her not guilty.
Yeah.
That was probably the real turning point. That's what made the news, I would imagine.
Yes.
There is something called this battered women syndrome, and we need to take it more seriously.
Yeah.
And I can imagine it was a sort of knock-on effect from there, when people are thinking, right, we can't just keep saying, oh, it's a domestic issue. Sort it out yourselves.
Yeah. It's nothing to do with us. It's between husband and wife.
And I should imagine something like that would have brought lots of women out with similar stories.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that would have helped. And that's what probably would have helped. I mean, the book and the film, again, all brought this out into the open. Which so often these things get hidden, don't they?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think the woman's ashamed as well.
Yes.
That it's and very often the person that's hitting her is marking her where it can't be seen. It can be covered by clothes and things like that. It's not on the face, and you hear all this sort of thing. I mean, my mother-in-law was a very, very strong feminist, and she really was. And she realised that sometimes you can marry a bloke. It happened to a relative of mine, and once they were married, he felt like he owned her. But up to then, and they'd been together a while. It wasn't like and she used to say they'd do it once, and then they'd have to go to sleep.
Yeah.
She's a sort of person that if a bloke had ever hit her, she just stuck a knife between his ribs.
The story, the last school that I worked at, that I was head at, we had a women's refuge just down the road. So we were used to getting a call from the women's refuge to say, Mum's just appeared, obviously escaping from an abusive relationship. Here, secretly, nobody else knows they're there. Will you take the children into school? So we used to take children into school at the drop of a hat, and they would leave sometimes a week later, sometimes a month later, but they'd leave as quickly as they'd come.
Yeah.
Because and we were always told in school, if anybody comes asking about these children,
you don't know who they are.
No, you don't let them go off with anybody.
I know.
But it was the whole, it was that secrecy that, that the only way these women sometimes could escape from that was at the dead of night, and making sure that it was all secretive, so that they couldn't be found. I
was going to say, my daughter, who's lived in London a long time now, so she's no fool. She was coming home from work one day, and she found a lady by one of the railway stations, very distressed, really distressed, and she went up to her and said, "What's wrong?" long story short was her husband had been hitting her. She was going to a women's refuge. She was going to pick her kids up, and she didn't have enough money for the tickets to get to the women's refuge. And Sarah went to the bank, drew it out, and gave it to her. And she said, "I don't. If she was conning me, fine, but I could not have lived with myself if I'd have seen in the papers the next day,
Yeah.
that her and her children had been found dead or something like that."
I think one of the other things that struck me when I read this, and it has before, is that there are men who are being abused.
Oh yeah.
But you hear about that even less.
Oh, you do, yeah.
You know. And I think it's quite often I think a man would be almost ashamed to admit that he was being abused or beaten or controlled.
I think it can be
by a
worse
woman.
for them in a way.
I think it can be, yeah. I mean, men aren't very good at opening up anyway.
No.
But even more so with that.
Oh.
Anyway, a very sombre note to
No, but
finish
that was
on.
really
rather,
that was
but
really
it-
interesting.
Yes, it was.
I didn't realise that's how it all
Yeah, no.
me
mushroomed.
So a real
Thank you.
contrast in this episode, reader.
was rather, yes.
You've got a real mixture there today
Yeah, yeah.
for your money's worth.
And I hope you've enjoyed it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So we'll draw this episode to a close. As I say,
Sorry to interrupt, Carol. Just quickly for me, I like to mention the blog that I keep going along. It's an Only Murders in My Mind blog. It's on WordPress.com, and there is a weekly writing prompt. But we've also started a new thing on our YouTube, and you can find more information about this on the blog. And that we're going to create some shorts, some sort of 60-second or slightly longer shorts on YouTube. And at the moment, the series we've got going is Strange But True Crimes.
yes,
Right,
they
so
are
not-
weird.
They're strange,
They are.
but true.
Make me laugh. Oh, right, so we'll stop there. Thank you all for listening, and please send in your comments. As I say, we like to hear from you, and we'll see you next week. Bye. You have been listening to Only Murders in My Mind, a Random Thought production, produced by John Bissett. The music in Peril was composed and recorded by OM Studio Strings.